it's interesting because of all places, you're in LA, you have contacts in New York, but you go to Australia to create this magazine. And
I was searching for a blank canvas, a fresh start. Yeah, I just needed something a little bit more bare. And then LA and New York. Yeah, Byron was a powerful experience. I also am excited to dive into that the building of the content within that magazine, or maybe it's even a coffee table book now. There's a lot of wisdom there that I'm still seeking to unearth. It has a lot to do with the Black obsidian substance. I think that's what I'm kind of on a journey to connect with. But my interest here is how can I connect the teachings of what got activated there and try to think about how we could use those same teachings to activate the female creator, the female founder, into learning more about themselves and to apply that to their business.
this is the Space Whispering Podcast with Rainy. Today our guest is Amanda Chase. Amanda has helped many businesses grow and thrive. Now she's shifting her business and herself. We listened to her how since she was very young, she had a vision of what she wanted to do in the future. So we see a little bit about the past, her current transition, and the future. And this is where the juiciness of this episode is. I think sometimes we forget how hard it is to change and to shift. But it is important that if we dare to do it and we have the courage and we listen to people like precious Amanda, we are reminded and comforted that we are not alone. I remember I consulted with her when I was first starting my own business. And to be honest, if I implemented a lot of the things she told me, my business would be at a different level right now. Do you dare to change, to get out of your comfort zone, and to listen to your heart, to listen to your soul? I hope you are inspired as much as I am, and that you comment, review the podcast, review this episode, reach out to me at hello@rainy.co or rainy.co, my website. If you look at all the episodes of the Space Whispering podcast, I will guarantee you that you will take something for you, something that you can shift in your daily practices, in your business, in your personal life, or your relationship with others. See you soon, Space Whispers. Adios. Besitos. Hola, Mata.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Where are you in the world today?
So far, I was just about to say Los Angeles. I am not in Los Angeles. I recently moved to Dallas, Texas. So I'm here. But my first thought was I'm in LA, but I'm not.
I know. It's like how long were you in LA?
I was there. I first moved in 2011 for a year. And then I moved back in 2017. So 7 years, 8 years total. But 7 years was the last little chunk of time. Yeah.
What brought you to LA?
I was thinking about writing about that on Substack, but it was first what always drew me to wanting to be in Los Angeles was the lifestyle that I imagined living there. Everything from being out in nature, the hiking, being by the ocean and the water, and having a rich lifestyle that was, like not and feeling like I lived in a city per se. That's what originally drew me there. And the weather, the sunshine, all of those kind of components were my initial draw. And just deeper than that was this sense of, and I'm reflecting on it as I don't live there anymore, is how I felt like I was surrounded by other people that were similar to me. They were on paths of pursuing creative endeavors, doing something outside of the norm. And that really intrigued me. It felt like that's where I've felt called to community and called to people. And then in 2017, when I was transitioning from working in the fashion industry to the wellness industry, it made such sense for me to go to Los Angeles, where there's a wealth of wellness clients and just the wellness lifestyle over there. And once I moved, I was like, well, I'm never going to move anywhere else. This is where I'm meant to be forever. So it's been a very interesting experience to have moved from that place that I never thought that I would have moved from. And so I'm really figuring out who I am outside of that place that defined me on so many levels. And so that's what originally drew me to LA, was all kind of all of those factors mixed into one.
So many. I feel them. I feel them like you speaking is like images in my heart
Mm.
of your time there. It doesn't mean you won't be back, but it seems like you're being called for something completely different, right? So
I
you
know.
you didn't only just move, but you also changed, but you're revamping what you used to do as well, right?
Yeah, I've had a lot of support with this transition from seeing trusted therapists and guides and helping me get clear on what this new chapter is meant to bring into my life, because it wasn't part of the plan whatsoever. And for someone that's planned everything, this is very unknown territory. And what it keeps reminding me of is why this kind of time feels so incredibly vulnerable. Is that it reminds me of the young woman I was when I was 18 years old, and I was living in the suburbs of Maryland, and I had this really big dream that I wanted to achieve, and I had no idea how I was going to make it. And being where I'm at right now reminds me so much of my hometown, but also the woman that I was at that time. And I think it's bringing me back to providing the support and care and tools and resources I so deeply wanted at that time, but 20 years later. And that's why this evolution of my business is so huge for me, is because I'm like right where I always wanted to be, just 20 years later. So it's bittersweet in the sense that I didn't expect this. I didn't know it was going to look like this, but it's actually put me exactly where I've needed to be all along at the same time. So it's very, yeah, bittersweet, and it's just so wild to be experiencing this right now in my life.
You know, you talk about plans, and we worked together for a little bit. You helped me so much think about my future in my career, and I'm so forever grateful. We started something very beautiful, and your support and your sweetness, your nectar, your experiences, you hold me through those moments, even through emails. Like I can feel you. I can feel your support and your belief and trust in me. And I can't even imagine how your other clients felt with you. And
Oh, that
I
makes me so happy. Thank you for saying that. I I genuinely really appreciate you saying that, because sometimes it's so hard to know the impact that we all have on one another. And especially as I'm dissolving one business and starting a new one, I'm like, does this work even matter? And I know it does, but just hearing that is really nice to hear, because you don't really hear that too much reflected back. And so thank you. And it is true. I genuinely do believe in any woman, any person that comes to me and says, I have this big dream, because I am that woman as well. You know, I see myself and everybody that comes into my space, and I treat people like I wish I had been treated. Um, and I don't think that that's so common. You know, I think that's it's a really delicate place to be when you have a big dream and you don't know how you're going to do it or how it's going to come to fruition. And I think there's a lot of places in the world that make us feel like we can't achieve those. And so providing just that belief in someone can get them to pursue so much. And you're a testament to that. And I'm proud of you, to say the least, that a couple years later, we're sitting here on your podcast. You're having me on as a guest, and seeing you shine and seeing you doing what you're meant to do just makes me so happy, because it changes the world and it makes the world a more beautiful place just by doing your gifts. So thank you for showing up and believing in yourself and keeping up with the actions, even though it's hard to kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel. So thank you for being yourself and being brave and embarking on your dreams no matter what.
So many blessings. Thank you. Thank you for your words. That being said, so do you want to talk? I'm going to leave it to you of like, do you want to talk about what you used to do and how that changed and why? Or did you just want to talk about like what's happening now and what's your future vision?
I will happily talk a little bit about the transition. So much of what I love learning about is how people do things. Like, how did you all of a sudden just launch this new, like, what do you mean? How did you, what? So much of my story is about explaining all of the bits and bops to kind of normalize the journey. So thank you for the invitation. And I will make it brief as well and concise, because since I live in the suburbs of Dallas, I have a lot of space and I have a lot of time and I have a lot of quietness. So I'm able to reflect a lot, and I intellectualized maybe a little too much. So I've intellectualized this whole thing. And so this is what I've come to the understanding of through my intellect. Emotions, that's a whole other thing. We can talk about that.
I would love
But basically, looking back, hindsight, over my journey of the past, I started my journey when I was 18, really, and I will not go back that far. But what's interesting is when I started my first business in 2017, I was offering creative services to wellness practitioners. And so basically what that means is I would be hired on as a consultant, and I would help people build things to within their company. So content, so helping them launch a YouTube channel, helping them create newsletters, helping them create social media content. I mean, you just can imagine the amount of different, it's blogs, it's articles, it's brand partnerships, it's retreats, it's events, it's workshops, it's masterclasses, podcasts we've created. What else have we created? Anything you could think of, I've probably created it in one way or another. And going into it, I didn't know how to do all of those things per se, but I did come in with a lot of tools that I had learned from the fashion industry when I worked in content creation over there. And I just continued to educate myself when the technology changed, when I needed to learn how to do different things. And so I started my journey with consulting. And it was something that it kind of took off like wildfire, in the sense that as soon as I launched with a client, our first e-course, it was so wildly successful for that client that word was getting around that they could grow and scale their business through digital content, and they could make a good living off of creating content. And so my company or my services were kind of the first, like, I don't think we were the first persons to do it by any means, but I do think there was the experience that I had in New York City completely shaped me into kind of being a little bit more different than probably the classic LA content creator. And so I'm grateful for my experience in New York, because it really like shaped me into having very high expectations with what I was delivering. And that led to about I'm still getting referrals, 8 years of referrals. And yes, I've pivoted my business a couple of times. One big pivot in my business was in 2020 on March 13th, when the world kind of went on a pause and all of my clients pulled out, and I had no idea how I was going to make $1 the next day. So I had to pivot my business overnight. And I spent probably a year or two learning how to build a business, because I had never built a business before. I just opened up a business bank account because I needed to protect, it's a legal thing. You have to like protect income, and you don't want to be personally viable. Like there's all these kind of like benefits to opening up an LLC that kind of protects your assets outside of like yourself. So I created a business more so for that than anything. I didn't really know what I was doing. So I spent those 2 years when we were going through the pandemic, and I was just really learning how important it is to have a foundation to your business. Like I didn't have that before. And it became very apparent when I had no idea what I was going to do when my business came to a halt on March 13th. So I then learned the importance of how to create a business. And then my offerings kind of shifted to business consulting plus content creation. So I kind of have this unique hybrid where we blend the two of those two elements. All of this to say, at the end of the day, I'm still building other people's businesses. And because I'm a one-woman show, I don't have the energy to build my business as well as help build others. And that left a unfulfilling feeling in my heart and my soul, because I was not making the very thing that I wanted to make. I was helping other people create what they wanted and make their dreams come true and create beautiful things. But I still put others' needs, wants, desires before my own. And I found myself last year feeling I was so burnt out. I was exhausted. I was really just unfulfilled. And so I said, I'm going to use my last little bit of savings to pivot my business. And, I can't by any means say that we've reached that huge evolution quite yet, but I'm at least making strong strides to doing more of the things that light me up, prioritizing my business, making business plans for myself, doing things, initiating things for myself, thinking about, oh, should I hire a social media person? Should I write a Substack? In ways that I haven't in a really long time. And so basically my business is going from consulting and helping other people create beautiful things out in the world to building a brand where I'm making things that I feel are needed in the world on a larger scale. And my target audience, the women that I want to help, are women is my younger self, who had a really big dream and had no idea how to make it happen. And the expression of that is, I could show you this. I'm looking at this huge like map that I made of a visual diagram of how I'm going to make it happen. But bringing that down into reality, into tangible, tactical things, is still very much being defined, because I still have clients. That's how I make a living to be able to afford my life. And so I am balancing how to have client work and also prioritize my creations, my visions, my dreams, and my desires. So I hope that is clear. I'm like, did I even answer your question? But that's what we're doing now.
I like it. I like it. It usually goes from like the inside out, but there's always a mix from the outside in as well. And I feel like both things were kind of like connecting slowly until you were like, okay, this is it. I need to revamp my 8 years of work and start something new.
Yeah.
And it's like you're in the middle of the Phoenix transformation in a way, burning the path.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's, there's some days where I'm like really questioning. I'm like, do I have the energy, again, to do this? And not so much to say that I don't have energy and all that kind of stuff, but it's more deeper than that, because when I was younger, I didn't know as much. And when you don't know as much, you tend to make a little bit more bolder decisions. And I've been through a lot of ups and downs, a lot of wins and a lot of failures and, challenges and all throughout. And so decisions these days are not as easy to make as they were before. There's weight to them. So every decision has to kind of be a little bit more methodical, a little bit more strategic as I'm getting older and as I'm thinking about like my personal goals and what I want my life to look like outside of my business. Because that's another big thing that shifted throughout these past 7, 8 years, is that my life was just focused on work. And I didn't think about anything outside of that. And now as I'm getting older, I am looking at my life in a more holistic manner and looking at all the components that I want my life to look like: my health, my relationships, family, friendships, hobbies, creative expression. And so it's a much more kaleidoscope type of outlook that I have on life, to making it all not to say that there's this ever going to reach some sort of balanced, equal, perfect kind of life, but other factors are playing into my decisions more so than when I was younger, where I was just thinking about work. And so I find that beautiful too, that there's other things that are important to me in my life in addition to my business, and that I'm not just my business. That's a big thing I've learned as well.
Yeah, the separation of who Amanda is and her business. And talking about like shift, I'm curious on like Amanda, your name, and how you grew up with your name and what does it mean, but also about your businesses, like the transitions and the names and how do they relate to you?
Oh, yeah. Well, Amanda means to be loved. I think that's the definition of Amanda. I love definitions of names. I'd be curious if does your name have a definition? Do you know your?
Yeah, I can answer it. So my full name is Rainelina. So Rainelina. And it has 10 letters. My sister was 6 years old when she named me, and my mom allowed it. One day she told me like the name she wanted for me. And then I realized that my name is super precious, because before I used to like 10 letters. Like it's so much. But what it means is because it's a mix of my parents. So my dad's name is like Counselor. And then my mom's name is Daughter of God. So it's like Counselor, Daughter of God. Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's so beautiful. Wow, I love that your sister chose your name. So she's older sister or younger sister?
Yeah, she's 6 years older than me. So when she named
Oh.
me, she was 6 years old. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so precious.
Right.
I love that so much. That's so special. Are you and your sister close?
We were very, very, very close growing up, because she's like a mother to me. She's like a mother figure, because her personality is very different than mine. And I always wanted to be like her in a way. But then after a while, I realized that I will never meet her expectations, like, or my expectations of being similar. And so there was like a disconnect, only so I can find who I was.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
To
I love
yeah, to get closer to who I really, really was. And it was like when I was 18 or like 20 something, I realized like, hey, I'm 15, I'm not like my sister. I'm 18, I'm not like my sister. I'm 20. And then after 20 something, I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna be my sister ever. So I have to accept myself fully. Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful how our family is such reflections of places for us to grow and to help us be even more ourselves. Yeah.
How about you? Tell me
Um,
about your name. I love it. So to be loved.
uh, yeah, to
That
be
takes
loved
courage.
is, yeah, I know. My dad really liked the name. It was like, I can't remember the name of the artist, but it was a song back in the 80s that he really loved. I think it was called like Amanda. And so that's where he got the inspiration for that song or for my name. And when it came to naming my businesses, the first business that I named was called Ocean Creative, and it was spelled Oshen, which is the phonetics of ocean. When you look it up on like a dictionary.com, definition, it's the phonetics of spelled. So it's O with a line over it, capital SH, and then like a lower E and then N. I found it because I was trying to find a name gosh, it's such a layered story, but I'll try to make it brief. When I was growing up, a place that made me feel very at peace and calm and also creative and allow me to get in that space of daydream, wander, possibility was when I was at the ocean. And I only was able to go to the ocean 1 week a year because that's when my family and I had a week-long vacation. And so I figured that feeling by the ocean is what I want to feel like in my business. It's a creative business, and that's where all of my best ideas come from. And so I started looking up like different words in different languages that reflected ocean and ocean inspired elements. And when I found the definition of ocean and the spelling of it, it just clicked. And I remember I was home. I was sick with the flu in March of 2018. And that's when I had a lot of time to sit and ponder. And I just emailed my legal advisor at the time. I said, this is the name. This is it. Just let's just move forward with it. And so within a week, I think I had gotten the LLC and the name all approved. So that was the name of Ocean Creative. And then Substance came because at the age of 18, I think I had like a Tumblr or some sort of blog, and I made up a tagline called "Make Something of Substance." And I was such like a little emo journaler. I was like doing collages in like my journal, and I would just like write this, like make like I don't even know what I was thinking. I mean, I do know what I was thinking. I was a very emotional, creative little human. And I found an outlet through creativity when I was younger. That was my way of expressing myself through words and also through collages, making them on the floor of my bedroom. Now, why I made up that tagline, make something of substance, I really can't describe it other than it's just what I was meant to bring forth into the world. I really can't explain why I wanted to do that or why I had that view in the world. But it originally came because I was reading these magazines and I just felt like the content inside of them lacked like depth and like really what I was interested in reading about. Like I was flipping through the pages of Nylon magazine and I saw these women artists that were posing in front of their art galleries. And I was like, how did you get there? All they did was talk about their acclimates. Like this person was featured in this gallery and this is what she's done. And I was like, yeah, but how? How do you do that? And I really wanted to know, like, what did you do to get there? Because I don't know how to do it. And so it started this obsession of figuring out. I promised myself I would do it for myself and then help others do it for themselves. So that's what started this long journey of this whole story of Substance. And it first started with Substance magazine. Again, the Make Something of Substance came through every business. It came through Ocean Creative. It was the tagline for Ocean Creative. And then it was like before I started Substance LLC. I was like, oh, well, Substance will be the magazine. So I've had so many iterations of ups and downs and kind of stumbled into where I'm at now. But now the business is called Substance, and the magazine, is something that I'm working on diligently. Again, I need funding for that, but it is back on the task list per se. So that is where Substance came in. And then there's all of these like symbolisms of, well, I don't even know if we should want to get into it, but basically I went to
Yes.
Byron a couple. Yeah, like, yes,
Yes.
I do. Basically, I went to Byron to meet with I had pulled the plug and I had said, all right, I'm investing in making this magazine. I'm going to hire this design team. This was a couple of years ago. And I was like really behind on my to-do lists for the design team for making this magazine. So I just thought, I'm just going to go there. I'm going to work with them, do some working sessions and like crank out this magazine and have a nice working session. Well, that ended up being a huge catalyst to what I was not expecting, which was finding out that Byron, I was there for 3 weeks, which was sort of a pretty long time to stay in Byron. It's a very transient type of place in Australia, and it's transient because has very turbulent energy. The Byron itself is built on a bed of black obsidian, which is a crystal rock formation that has very intense powers and energies. And I didn't know this before going there. I had a lot of spiritual, profound experiences when I was there, which brought up this whole idea of places all around the world are built on different types of substances, of different energies like salt and different rocks. And you have like the chakras around the world. And so this whole fascination of how different places in the world can evoke different aspects within us. Like if you're familiar with like astrocartology, I believe is what it's called, where you can like travel to different places and depending on your chart, different places impact you differently. And so it brought this whole like spiritual experience to me in ways that I hadn't experienced before. And Black Obsidian is all about, and I'm going to butcher it because I haven't looked at the content, but it's a very powerful stone rock that really brings up any misalignments in your life for you to deal with them and to move through them. And so a big thing that came up for me on that trip was using my voice and being clear about what I want and explaining that to people and telling people what I would like, specifically how that relates to what I want to do in the world, how I want to be in relation with others. And so communication for me was a big theme that came up when I was in Byron. And it's just interesting how I was also creating a magazine. I was meeting people. So it was just like a lot about voice and initiation and moving through very powerful blocks. Then I got really inspired that every magazine would take place in these different places of the world that have different crystal rock formations or just like different places to ignite these types of energies within us. So it took a wild turn, but it got a lot of people excited. And that was when I came after that trip of me being like the editor in chief of Substance and really doing what I always wanted to do. The come down from that was very intense in the sense that I came back to a 2-bedroom apartment in the city of Los Angeles with very high rent, very high overhead of lifestyle that I was living in LA. And I did not feel motivated at all to do any more client work. And so I found myself at a very interesting point where I couldn't keep doing what I was doing and I needed to change it all. And all of it had to change, including the place that I got, the business that I built, all of it. It had to all go away because it was no longer in alignment with what I was meant to be doing from that moment on, moving forward. And so I went through a lot of endings, which are always my kind of Achilles heel, but I'm also grateful for them because they taught me so much about what really matters. And I think that kind of goes back to this whole like I'm not just my business anymore. I'm a sum of all of these things that make me who I am. And it was part of that crumbling of what didn't work in order to find myself and to find what works for me in a more balanced way, I guess you could say. So it's almost like I'm rebuilding this business from a much healthier foundation than I have ever been before. And I think that is my favorite part about all of this, is that I built a business when I kind of didn't know what I was doing. But I keep telling myself that I deeply trust that from all of these experiences of learning what not to do, that I can build a better business by knowing what to do now. And that I needed to go through all of that to kind of get me here, which is everybody kind of experiences that to one degree or another. And so I'm building this business now with just so much more compassion and heart than I think I've ever been able to provide anything that I've created. And that even goes with all of my beautiful projects I've made with my clients. Things feel different now and I feel different. And that's all I can every day I just wake up and I do my spiritual practice. And every day I just say, like, please give me the strength to do what I'm meant to do in this world. Please give me the guidance. I don't know what I'm meant to do. I keep asking for guidance every day. So that's kind of the big shift, is that I've really created a deeper spiritual vessel and container that's a lot more heartfelt than it was even before. So much more healthier than I was.
It's interesting because of all places, you're in LA, you have contacts in New York, but you go to Australia to create this magazine. Or not to create it because you already were working on it, but kind of like to put it out there with a stronger view. And then all this happens. So it's like, for you to do this, you have to do this first, right? It's like, this is different than this, and you basically have to destroy this to create this.
No.
Crazy.
I know, it's crazy. I worked in the magazine industry in New York City. Like that's where I started too. So for me to, and I think that's why I needed to go to some place that was a little, no, not even a little, very unexpected to build this thing, because I needed a brand new landscape. I needed like almost unaltered place that would be so shocking and surprising to people that I kind of like needed, like I'm just imagining when no one stepped on the ocean and it's just like, or the sand at the ocean, it's just completely fresh, unwalked on. That's what I was searching for. I was searching for a blank canvas, a fresh start that didn't have, I just needed something a little bit more bare. And then LA and New York, Byron was a powerful experience, and I hope to be back. I also am excited to dive into that, the building of the content within that magazine, or maybe it's even a coffee table book now. I'm not really sure, but there's a lot of wisdom there that I am still seeking to unearth, and I think it has a lot to do with the Black Obsidian substance, more so than really anything. I think that's what I'm kind of on a journey to connect with. I mean, I've never really been someone who's like very big into crystals or anything like that. But my kind of interest here is, how can I connect the teachings of what got activated there and try to think about how we could use those same teachings to activate the female creator, the female founder, into learning more about themselves and to apply that to their business. So it's a little like all over the place, but I kind of like all the symbolism that's happening there. Because at first it was like, oh, I'm just going to feature all of these like Byron artists and creators and hotels and restaurants. And then I felt like I don't really feel as confident to speak on behalf of that because I don't live there. And so it would just be like a tourist perspective, and that didn't feel right. But I do think there's something universal about being able to experience the energy of a crystal. Like I have crystals here of black obsidian, and I can relate to that feeling, more so than the physical landmark of Byron. So it's shifted a lot. And I haven't worked on it in a long time, but that's kind of where, yeah.
But you haven't worked on it because you're still in that transformation phase. So once that hits, once the ashes are on the ground, it's gonna start. You're gonna start rebuilding again. So
Thank
it's just
you.
that the roots are very deep because you did very deep work, and so and obviously we're talking about when we're cleaning the land, but it's not that experience or that tree wasn't there. That it's not that you're going to erase your past. It's just that it's something new, and sometimes we have to, remove to freshen the soil again. And I think that's one of the reasons. But also, I'm not completely sure, but I know New York has a big stone underneath and it's black, but it's not
Mm.
obsidian.
Mm.
I don't know if it's black actually, but I know it has like a big, big rock. Deborah Henneken, one time I heard her
Oh,
saying that. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, she said there's a huge, and that's why New York is that way. So it heightens all the emotions. So if you're super activates you even more, right? But it goes the opposite way. So if like you're sad, then it's like you're sadder than any place
Mm.
in the world. So it heightens any emotions or any actions you're doing.
Yeah.
That makes sense,
See,
right?
it is real, and I'm excited to dive into that journey because I think it impacts us more than we even realize. And I think what I realized about myself on that trip was that I'm more sensitive than I realize. I'm more spiritual and maybe even a little bit more witchy than I had ever imagined too. So really leaning into the gifts and leaning into our sensitivities are kind of what I've been like initiated into this as well, because um, those are important factors of the land and where you're at and how that impacts you and how I think you're able to move through things. It's a very interesting way to look at life and a way to view what's happening. And I think the awareness of that type of information is just super important, and it makes us feel less, like, I'll take this for myself, like less bad about ourselves if we weren't able to do something somewhere, or if it's taking longer than expected, or if so it allows me to have more compassion for myself. And I hope
Yeah.
to bring in that type of way of supporting people through compassion, and I have to give myself compassion for the long time that's taken for me to put this out too. So I appreciate you reflecting that back. So thank
Well,
you.
there's so many reflections I have, but also about the seasons. We live through seasons and we're humans. And so when you say witchy, what I realize is that we have disconnected through nature, our natural rhythm of connecting. And we call it witchy because we have forgotten. So it feels foreign to us. And I think we have to honor the winter. We have to honor each season. And so it takes time. The thing is, when we forget and we disconnect with that, we think we're creating and putting beautiful things out into the world. But somewhere along the way, because we didn't rest or we didn't act because we were tired on these hunches that we have, these intuitive hunches that are very natural, then, we're kind of like going backwards without even realizing it. So when you have a pause like you did and you are having now, like you said, I have more room, I have more space to think, I am processing things from a different place because you're more connected to yourself. And so, but that transition is hard because you're used to the other way of approaching a business or the other way of approaching life in general. So, for example, one thing that came up was one time I was meditating in the jungle. I use meditation and prayer. So, like, prayer and meditation for me are basically almost very similar. It's just that yoga would say meditation and church would say prayer. And I was praying, I was meditating, it was completely silent. And thoughts started coming into my mind. One of my friends, he's depressed. And I started seeing images of him, of why he was depressed. So I this is so weird for me in that level of understanding. And I usually don't have my phone around when I'm, in meditation. But eventually I got my phone. When I get my phone, he's describing everything I saw in visuals. And I started crying and like almost like hyperventilating. How does this happen? Why is this happening to me? This is too weird. This is too weird. And I just didn't like it that I had that realization. And my neighbor, she is an artist from Canada, and she was in her journey in India and all these things. And she tells me, look, I tell my daughters that actually this is the normal. So what happened to you is the normal. We have these feelings because we're connected to the people we love. We're connected to everything around us. And having a phone or a text is not our normal. Our normal was having instincts and having intuition, and that is normal. We just have to forget it. And I don't know if this story will help you, but yes, it is about the witch. Yes, it is about all of these things that are inside of us, that as women mainly, that have been also demonized. Like, the woman is evil. The woman has to be controlled. She has to have her dress a certain way because then she's a temptation to men. All these little things that we ourselves allowed this for generations. Now we're breaking that. We're seeing that we're actually not evil. No, we're actually not shameful. We birth humans. We actually birth humans into this world. And connecting with that. We bleed once a month. Like, how? Coming to the natural state of who we are. I think that might be one of the greatest paths we can go through.
Appreciate you sharing that with me, because I think we all needed to hear that reminder, to be honest, that we all have these intuitive hits. We're all connected. And I loved your message of it just being disconnected is when that's our not natural state. The natural state is to be connected. And so I really appreciate that perspective shift a lot. So thank you.
Even the stone, look how a stone affected you. Like, someone else would be like, oh my God, that is not true. But then why is it that when you're in LA, you feel different? And then why is it that you go to New York and it's a completely different energy? You feel it in your body. You feel it in your actions. You feel it even how you speak. Shifts.
I know, whether we're conscious of it or not. And I'm on a big journey and so curious about those unseen elements that affect us. So thank you for sharing that about New York. I'll dive into that. I'm super curious.
Please let me know.
I'll definitely keep following Miss Deborah as she shares those types of wisdoms and teachings. So thank you.
And now you're in Texas. So I feel like right now it's so new for you. And in a way you need adjustment. Like, you're adjusting to the new place. You're a flower. It's like you're a plant, a tree. You're exploring. What comes to mind is water. Like, in a way, you already planted your seeds. You already worked the land, and now it just needs water.
Exactly. Yep. Just nurturing. And I love the water element so much. I feel very connected to it in many ways. So that is very, very true. And that watering is, it takes different shapes. Like, how do I find my rhythm and my new life here? Like, my new places where I go to coffee or to hang out, or to my new friends and my new spaces, which I know you're so connected with as well, spaces, and how those reflect the people that we are back to us. And so, yeah, it's a big undertaking of adventure. And I have some developments. I'm going to Austin next week for a networking trip, and I have a dinner with some friends at a space on this weekend. So slowly but surely, I'm really not going too far out of my way to go and make too much happen, and just like little moments, or little, I don't even know, activities every now and then. But I spend a lot of time at home, and I think that it's necessary for me to get clear too about what I wanted, what this time can provide for me as well, because it is really me putting myself in the forefront in the brand, and what I want to build, which is really new for me. So a lot of watering for sure.
So anything else you want to share, like, as you know, the usual, like where we can find you, where we can find your beautiful business? And I'm excited. I'm excited to see what it will become.
Thank you. Well, I just want to share what always is top of mind is that we have a beautiful online community of female creatives and aspiring entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs that we have available online. It's $11 a month for 4 weekly circles and monthly challenges and things like that. So it's incredibly affordable. It's really for community and connection. And so if anyone is ever feeling like they want an hour a week to dedicate to their own filling up their own cup, is really what we always reference, those circles. That's where you can find it. It's called Substance Social Club. And my website is wearesubstance.co. The .com was already purchased. So I got the .co. And if you have any questions, you can email me at hello@wearesubstance.co. And you can find us on Instagram, which is @substanceplatform. And we are hopefully going to have some events in Los Angeles and Austin to bring women together, community, and also start to talk about what this life of substance means, a life of substance, a business of substance, and being able to help the masses with content and through coffee table books and all the things. But for right now, the best place to work with us and to get support is through our online community, Substance Social Club. And I'm here if you have any questions as well.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for the work you do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here with me and sharing this time.
Thank you. I'm so grateful. So proud of
Besitos,
you.
Amanda.
Space Whispers. Thank you for spending time with me today. Your host, Rainy, on the Space Whispering podcast. I hope today's episode gave you something to reflect on, inspire you, or energize you to create something beautiful. Help us grow the soulful community and spread the love by subscribing to the podcast, leaving a review, or sharing this episode with your community. If you're feeling called to transform your inner or outer spaces into a true reflection of you, let's connect. Schedule a discovery session with me at rainy.co or Instagram rainy_. What soulful actions will you take today? Keep listening to the whispers of creation and let your soul's magic flow into the world. See you soon. Besitos.